Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Walters Sports Bar will sponsor your next private event. Walters is located right across the street from the ballpark in Navy Yard.
Register at waltersdc.com and click the Inquire Now button.
Long hold, he's running this time. The 2-2 is blasted to right center field and deep. Call chasing back, looking up, and it is gone. It is Pete Alonso 5, and the Nationals 1. He has driven in all 5 Mets runs with 2 homers. That a line smash over the right center field wall, is 30th of the season.
Here's Jeimer Candelario. DH tonight, swings and hits one sharply toward the middle. Deflects off the mound, then off the glove of the lunging, reaching Francisco Lindor into center field. Candelario is going to try for 2, and he is called out at second base on the tag by McNeil when it seemed Candelario might have come off the bag.
And he hurt himself.
He appears to have hurt his left hand on the play, or his ankle, I'm not sure which.
Left shoulder.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Saturday, July 29th, 2023, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Citi Field in New York City. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. So we on Friday night in Game 2 of a 4-game series for the Nats at the New York Mets had a battle of the Nats ace of the past versus, potentially, the Nats ace of the future, MacKenzie Gore, versus Max Scherzer. Unfortunately, the former ace taught the perhaps future ace a lesson. Gore 3 runs in 5 innings. Scherzer 1 run in 7 innings, 7 strikeouts. Pete Alonso had a 3-run homer and a 2-run homer. The Nats lost 5-1, fell to 43 and 61. But with the 2023 MLB trade deadline coming up this Tuesday, we also had on Friday night a bit of a scare. The Nats' top trade chip, Jeimer Candelario, getting banged up in the top of the 8th. He had a one-out first pitch single on a grounder off the mound and into shallow right center field, an odd play. He then got tagged out in an attempt to stretch the single into a double. He came off the second base bag, and he got hurt on the play, or did he? Mark Zuckerman, not long ago, was speaking with Jeimer Candelario. What do we know about Jeimer and what happened here on Friday night?
Well, like everybody else watching on TV, Al, me watching in person had the same reaction, like, oh no, you got to be kidding me. He did feel something. It was an awkward slide. He needed to get his left hand onto the base to make sure he held the base. And in doing so, he bumped into the umpire, Vic Carapazza, and in doing that, felt something in his shoulder. And so he was nervous. He could see him motioning for the trainer to come out there. The good news, after that initial scare, he said he feels fine. He went back in the cage. He actually took some swings. The crazy part of this was he was DHing in this game, not playing third base. So he never officially came out of the game. And if somehow his spot came up again in the lineup, if the boys battled enough in the 9th and his spot came up again, it sounds like he would have hit. So he was all smiles afterwards. His frustration was that he was thrown out on the play, not that he was hurt. But boy, for a few seconds there, all of Mike Rizzo's trade deadline plans suddenly looked very different, did it not?
Boy, it has been a rough month of July physically for Jeimer Candelario. He already in this month of July has dealt with a right thumb bone bruise. He hurt his left thumb. He hurt his right knee. And now he had what happened to him on Friday night. You know, it's a funny deal with trade chips because you almost never see this, and yet it would make some sense, especially if you are a bad team, a rebuilding team, and you know with near certainty that you're going to be trading someone. Why not sit him out in the days leading up to a trade deadline? Like, you'll see a team hold a guy out on like the day of the trade deadline, maybe the night before. But you never would see like, hey, just shut Jeimer down until Tuesday, okay? And let's say, hey, thanks for your work here, but, you know, we're going to trade you, and we don't want to risk you getting hurt. Teams don't ever really do that, do they?
No, I don't think I've ever seen that. I suppose if you were going to go that far, you might as well just trade him right now for whatever the best offer is. I guess the thought is that him playing well could help convince somebody, hey, let's go all in on him. He's playing really well right now, something like that. Usually teams have scouts in the stands in those final few days, checking a guy out and seeing what they see in him. But I think beyond that, it's just sort of not the code. It's not the way they do it. It would be very difficult for them to tell Jeimer Candelario right now not to take the field. He wants to play every day. And you've seen him play through a lot of stuff this month, as you just outlined. That's the irony of all this, is that Davey thought he was giving him a break in this game by having him DH instead of play third base. It hasn't happened often this year. He's done that. He thought, well, take him off his feet, relax a little bit. No, instead, he ends up having that happen. And I asked him about everything he's gone through this month, and Jeimer started laughing. He knows what he's been through. Only he knows physically what he feels like right now. But he is a gamer. He wants to be out there every single day. And I give him credit. Look, you can question whether he should be trying to stretch that single into a double in that situation, down 4 runs in the 8th inning, and understanding what his situation is coming up in the next few days. But the baseball player in him wouldn't allow him to hold back. He wanted to do something that he thought would be good for the team. And that's who he's been. And it's why they've enjoyed him so much here. It's not just the production, the way he plays the game. He's really been an enjoyable player to have here. And if they do end up losing him before Tuesday, a lot of people are going to have fond memories of him here because of what he did and the way he went about it.
He's done a really good job. And for a 1-year, $5 million contract, it is hard to have any real complaints about the job that he has done. Well, MacKenzie Gore was the Nats starting pitcher in this 5-1 loss at the Mets on Friday night. Like I said, 3 runs in 5 innings. It was a similar game to what we've been seeing lately, especially with Gore and Josiah Gray. Gore put a lot of guys on base in this game. He was sort of playing with fire for a good chunk of the game. He, over the 5 innings, gave up 5 hits, a homer and 4 singles, issued 4 walks. He threw 95 pitches. He only had 2 strikeouts, too, which was un-MacKenzie Gore-like this season. But when you look at how what went down, he tossed 4 scoreless innings. He was an out away from 5 scoreless innings. So he was doing what Josiah Gray has been doing, putting guys on base, but, overall demonstrating good run prevention. And then came what happened in the bottom of the 5th, him allowing 3 runs. He began the bottom of the 5th by issuing back-to-back walks of the Mets' numbers 8 and 9 batters, Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez. And then came the big blow, the first of 2 big blows by Pete Alonso in this game. Gore gave up a 2-out, 3-run homer by Alonso on a moonshot to the second deck in left center field for a 3-0 Mets lead. The homer went a projected 453 feet per StatCast. So like a lot of recent Nats outings, this one was going okay, although, in the back of your mind, you're saying to yourself, man, he is putting a lot of guys on base. And then things fell apart in that 5th inning.
Yeah, so we can look at the results and say he was doing things well, kind of like we've done with Josiah Gray. But even more than Josiah, it really felt like he was just tempting fate in this one. He faced 23 batters. He only threw first pitch strikes to 8 of the 23. That's a recipe for disaster. And pitching with traffic on the bases every single inning, never had a 1-2-3 inning. That takes a toll on you, especially for a young guy. Every pitch is high stress, high leverage, and he got away with it for 4 innings, and he almost got away with it for a 5th. But that's a hard way to go about this. And I do think in the long run, that's something he and Josiah Gray have to get better at. You've got to have some clean innings, some quick innings along the way. When you're constantly pitching out of trouble, always out of the stretch, always worried about a guy on base, it is going to have a physical and mental toll on you. And it felt like that sort of caught up to him by the end of the night. But it's really the walks. I mean, I understand he hung a slider to Pete Alonso. We saw what happened. That's what Josiah Gray's been so great at not giving up this year. But again, that's tough to avoid, making one bad mistake at night. It's going to happen. It's the 2 walks that preceded it, the 8 and 9 hitters to lead off the inning. And I think at the end of the night, that's what MacKenzie was more upset about, because he had been better recently at limiting the walks, and it came back to haunt him again this one. He walked the number 9 hitter Alvarez twice, walks the 8 hitter Beatty to lead off that inning. We've seen with Max Scherzer, you give up a solo homer, it's not the end of the world. That's exactly what happened to Scherzer in this game. You walk 2 batters and then give up a 3-run homer, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah, Gore was coming off a good outing. The 6-1 win over the San Francisco Giants at Nationals Park last Sunday afternoon. 5 scoreless innings, 8 strikeouts in that game. He gave up just 4 hits in that game, issued 2 walks, although he did throw a decent number of pitches in that game, 5 innings, 90 pitches. Would you say, with what we've seen from Gore this season, and, he's been up and down, I still would say it's been more good than bad, but, the numbers aren't great on the year. Do you think the Nats internally feel better, worse, or about the same about Gore now as compared to how the organization felt about Gore coming into this season?
I think they feel probably about the same because I think they have seen enough of the good, and the good has been really good. Let's be clear about that. His best starts have been the best starts of anybody in this rotation this year, better than Josiah Gray's best starts. It's about the consistency of it and the high pitch counts and all that stuff that we're just talking about. So I think a lot of people view him in the same way they viewed Josiah Gray last year and understanding it's going to be a learning year. There may be some bumps along the way, but it's all about keeping him healthy, getting him as many innings as you can, and learning some lessons along the way. And I think in this case, there's been enough of those, not just good starts, but great starts from him that underscores what they always felt like and confirms what they always felt like about him. Now, if he has a similar year next year, then you start to worry a little bit and think, okay, maybe he's got some things that he still needs to figure out. But if this is, really his first full big league season, I think the good there has been enough to justify what they've believed in him. Now it's a matter of taking that next step, having more consistently good starts and limiting the damage in the bad ones, which we have seen Josiah Gray do this year. So if next year goes for Gore the way that this year has gone for Gray, I think they'll be really pleased with it. In some ways, I think they may believe he may even be better than Josiah is next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Gore now is ahead of where Gray was last year. I mean, it certainly feels that way, but there certainly are things for Gore to work on. He does walk a lot of guys. His whip now on the year is at 145, and he's not eating up many innings. I mean, Gore and Gray, each guy has started 21 games this season. Gray, who is not eating up a ton of innings, has totaled 118 and a third innings. Gore is at 106 innings. I mean, so, a pretty good chunk of innings fewer than Gray, even though Gray, like I said, not exactly an innings eater. But, as we know, this is part of the process. There are going to be nits to pick. I think it's great that each guy has stayed healthy, especially Gore, given what went down with him from a physical standpoint last year. I think that might be the biggest positive of all, that the guy's made 21 starts, knock on wood, has been just fine. I mean, what's probably going to end up happening, especially with Gore, they're going to have to end his season unless an injury ends his season. Like, I've got to imagine we're getting close to whatever workload limit is on MacKenzie Gore, and if he continues to stay healthy, early mid-September, they might have to shut him down? Is that conceivable?
It's conceivable. I think they would like to push it beyond that, but to do that, they're going to have to skip a start somewhere along the way. I think they will try to do that based on how the scheduling all works out. So that's probably in the cards at some point. And then I think they'd like to get him into maybe mid-September before they have to worry about shutting him down. They did get Josiah Gray a little further than they wanted to last year, but he was fine. He was healthy. He was doing well enough that they said, okay, let's keep pushing it until really up until the last, I think, week or two of the season. That was the case. So knock on wood, he stays healthy. I think they're okay giving him another, say, 7 starts maybe, if they can space him out a little bit, because you don't want to go too far this year, but you also want to set a good baseline for next year so that he can increase that number by whatever total they have comfortable in their mind. So I don't think you want to be overly cautious here, especially when he's been feeling well all throughout it.
What I always wonder about is, okay, like we say workload limit, what exactly is that? Is it innings? Is it pitches? Is it high stress innings / pitches? Because if the latter is the case, with Gore putting so many guys on base, he is having a lot of high stress innings, high stress pitches. You wonder if that is maybe altering the calculus on what exactly that workload limit is. We'll see.
Hey Nats Chat, Beyonce is performing at FedEx Field on Saturday, August 5th, and no surprise, it is expensive. We can help though by using the special promo code for Nats Chat with the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for events like this one for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you will know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NATSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code NATSCHAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
The kick and the pitch. Swinging a chopping ground ball toward the middle. Lindor has it to the bag himself. And the throw on to first. In time, a double play. And the game is over. The Mets have taken the first 2 games of this 4-game series as Lindor completes a 6-3 double play to end the ball game.
3 Nats relievers on Friday night combined to allow 2 runs in 3 innings. We saw Andres Machado, a perfect bottom of the 6th. Rico Garcia was the man who gave up the runs, bottom of the 7th. He allowed 2 runs. He gave up a 2-out opposite field single by Francisco Lindor to left center, and then gave up the second Pete Alonso homer of the game, a 2-out 2-run homer by Alonso to center field for a 5-1 Mets lead, despite Alonso having been down at one point 0-2. This homer only went, and I put the word only in quotation marks, 423 feet per Statcast. And then Corey Abbott, a scoreless bottom of the 8th, despite giving up a single and a walk. Pete Alonso has such an interesting statistical profile. We've seen guys like this before, clearly, but Alonso now this season, 30 home runs, a slugging percentage of .514, but a batting average of just .220. Like one of the classic cases of how you can't just look at batting average. And in a lot of ways, especially with a guy like this, you really should just ignore batting average because it doesn't come close to telling you the story. I mean, he's one of the most fearsome hitters in the sport. He has killed the Nats in recent years. 30 bombs. I mean, that moonshot, that first home run Friday night was something. But yeah, he's got that Kyle Schwarber thing of a rock bottom batting average, .220, and yet he's a lot better than just a quote-unquote .220 hitter.
Sure. I don't think we're talking Dave Kingman here. I think this is a different kind of hitter and someone who in 2023, it's an acceptable stat line. Now, that said, I don't follow the Mets every day, but I'm sure that there has been some frustration that he's maybe not coming through in some other situations of consequence. It's kind of all or nothing with the home runs. Home runs are great, but sometimes you do need an RBI single as well, and he hasn't been quite as good at that kind of stuff. If the rest of their lineup is producing the way that it's supposed to, you live with this. But I mean, he's their number 3 hitter in this game with those numbers. And because of injuries and the other guys not performing, I still feel like they probably view this as, I'm not going to call it a disappointing season, but not as good a season as it should be for a guy with 30 homers on July 28th.
Well, he's like the anti-Nats player, right? Because the Nats have a bunch of guys who are the exact opposite of this. Some decent batting averages, even some, good on-base percentages, but ain't nobody slugging no .514 on the Nats. Ain't nobody threatening no 30 homers on the Nats. I mean, getting to 20 homers for some guys will be enough for this team this season in terms of what you realistically are going to accomplish. Well, with the Nats offense on Friday night, this was a second consecutive lackluster game. The Nats offense in the 5-1 homestand was good in the 5 wins for sure. But so far in this series, not so good. The Nats on Friday night, just 1 run, 8 hits. We had a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. The Nats drew just 2 walks, went 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. I mentioned Max Scherzer. He was good. He's not having a very good season. His ERA for this season is still over 4.01. But we saw vintage Max in this game on Friday night. Again, 1 run, 7 innings, 7 strikeouts. But I tell you, I had to laugh at the guy who really got to Max in this game, Luis Garcia. Small sample size, yes, but Luis Garcia has been a Max Scherzer killer in Luis's career. Now, we know Garcia is not having a good month of July at all. He overall is not having a good season from a batting standpoint. But Davey Martinez on Friday night had Garcia, who lately has been batting in the 8th spot, batting in the 6th spot, and that strategy proved to be wise. Luis Garcia went 3 for 4 with a solo homer, a double, and a single. He, in the top of the 2nd, had a 1-out double off Max Scherzer to right field. Garcia in an Nats 1-run 7th, a leadoff homer to center field off Max Scherzer, 406 feet per Statcast. Garcia improved to 6 for 11 in his regular season career against Max. And then Garcia with the cherry on top of the sundae in the top of the 9th, a 1-out single to right field on a 1-2 pitch. How and why is this the case that Luis Garcia has owned Max Scherzer?
So I asked him afterwards because obviously it's not the guy that you're thinking it's going to be the case. And when he's had so much hard time hitting other guys, why is it that he's so good against a 3-time Cy Young Award winner and future Hall of Famer? And he smiled and he said he knows it's Max Scherzer and maybe that helps him focus a little more. It's funny. So much about what we hear with Garcia is about focus and not, remember in the field, all that about don't take pitches off and stay engaged all the time. Maybe there's some of that at the plate. And when you're facing a big time guy like Scherzer, that actually brings out the best in you because you are locked in and wanting to do well and trying to do well. Now, it's also, as he pointed out, Scherzer's a good fastball pitcher. Garcia's a good fastball hitter. The ball that he hit out was a fastball up in the zone. That's the kind of pitch that Luis can do damage on. But it was really nice to see. You would hope that maybe this could jumpstart him a little bit because he has not been very good, like you said. He knows it. Davey said that maybe this could be a little boost for his confidence. We'll have to see how it goes the rest of the weekend, but he could certainly use something like that. And maybe this is the thing that gets him going again because, when it's all said and done, we need to get to the end of the season and say, is Luis Garcia the answer or not at second base? And I'm not sure we really know the answer to that question at this point.
No, we don't. It's funny. There was a period of time, and it wasn't that long ago, that you could argue Garcia was having the best offensive season out of himself, C.J. Abrams, and Keibert Ruiz. You're not saying that now. Abrams and Ruiz have had great Julys. Garcia hasn't. And, with Abrams and Ruiz, there is a there is a benefit of the doubt that those guys are going to get that Luis Garcia is not going to get. I mean, Ruiz just signed an 8-year extension a few months back. Abrams was a very highly touted prospect and is showing improvement. Garcia has never been viewed in that same way. Like, he's been viewed as a nice prospect. I think he deserves credit for sort of fighting his way into this position. But there's nothing set in stone with him. And, he's a guy who, if he continues to struggle this season, you do wonder what the organizational outlook on him is going to be going into next year. But good for him for having a very nice game against Max Scherzer on Friday night. But that was basically the Nats offense in this game. Garcia had 3 of the Nats, 8 hits. He was responsible for the lone run, and otherwise there just wasn't much going on. Lane Thomas, who we talked about on the previous installment of the show, his bad July continued. Thomas on Friday night, 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. We had Corey Dickerson as the Nats' number 5 batter in this game, 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. I wanted to ask you this. So Joey Meneses got the day off. That's why Jeimer Candelario was the designated hitter. Ildemaro Vargas was the Nats starting third baseman. Look, Vargas, when he has played, has been productive. But man, I said to myself before the game, we just talked a few episodes ago about Riley Adams and opportunities to get Adams more plate appearances. It seems to me, if you're going to give Meneses a night off, why couldn't you have had Riley Adams as your starting DH? I mean, obviously that's not what Davey did. It felt like that was something, though, that could have done and would have made some sense.
Yeah, I think this was more about wanting to keep Jeimer Candelario in the lineup, but take a little bit off of him. As it turned out, like we said, he still had an injury scare. I think the idea there was let him DH and take a break. I think then you could say, why not have Meneses at first base instead of Dom Smith, who was 0 for 17 in his career against Max Scherzer entering this game. But to his credit, Dom Smith drew a walk and then doubled finally for his first career hit off of Max. So, good for that. But he was hitting 8th in this game, which tells you something as well. The Vargas thing is interesting to me. The conspiracy theorist in me said, maybe they want to show teams out there that, hey, don't forget about Ildemaro Vargas. He's a good quality utility infielder. We're going to put him out there at third base and put him in the lineup, and maybe you'll notice him because come Tuesday, you might be interested in him. Maybe that's overthinking it and it wasn't anything like that, but part of me in the back of my mind couldn't help but at least have that thought.
It's possible. I mean, after Candelario, I think it's wide open who you could identify as the number 2 most likely Nat to be traded on Tuesday. As we've discussed, it may be that nobody else gets traded, but if you had to set like Vegas odds for Nats players to be traded, who's your number 2? You could argue it is Vargas, like we've talked about it for a while here. I think it could be him, and maybe it ends up being Candelario and Vargas, and that's it. And like you end up holding on to everybody else. We'll see. Hopefully Candelario stays healthy until Tuesday. Now you got to wonder. It has been a weird month with him getting banged up as he has been getting banged up. Well, we have some moments here to go through some emails. You can always email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have to share this. Our friend Rich Park, he is a Nationals fan who has been in Korea. And we have joked with him about potentially downloading this podcast in the demilitarized zone. Now, it's been a joke, although Rich has actually said he's tried to do it. Although, we don't want to get Rich in trouble. We certainly don't want to get him harmed in any way. So, hopefully he's doing all right. But he wrote to us about a game that he attended, and he wore his Nats Chat podcast t-shirt at the game. The game was a KBO game, and he sent us a great-looking photo. But he also noted this. Erick Fedde is killing it in the KBO this season. Erick Fedde, for those who don't know, did not sign with another team this past offseason. He signed with a team in Korea. And according to Rich, Fedde is a candidate for the KBO version of the Cy Young Award. So go figure. Erick Fedde is conquering the KBO.
I've been following this since early in the year. He had a dominant start, like 8 scoreless innings, I think, early in the year. And I believe he was an all-star there. He was sporting a mustache at one point. I don't know if that's still true or not, but good for him for going over there and finding success that unfortunately he never had in the United States. Now, I don't know what that will lead to ultimately for him, if he'll get another shot from somebody, if they watch him and say, hey, maybe he's figured something out. But whatever it is, what Erick Fedde is throwing in Korea is working against that league. And it was very cool to see the photo that Rich sent us where he is sitting. He didn't realize this. He's sitting behind the plate and like in plain view of the regular center field camera that shows every pitch. So we've got photos of Erick Fedde pitching and Rich Park sitting in like the third row behind the plate in his Nats Chat t-shirt. How cool is that?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm happy for Erick Fedde. I mean, things may not have worked out in MLB, but if they're working out in the KBO, then good for him. Interesting email from R. Owen Ranger on a guy who we've talked about regarding the trade deadline. Lane Thomas writes R. Owen, Mike Rizzo has only traded away 2 non-rentals, talking about, this recent incarnation of the Nats being sellers and not buyers. And he says, well, both of those non-rentals who got traded happen to be superstars in Trey Turner and Juan Soto. And kind of the point of the email is don't be expecting Lane Thomas to be traded. Don't even assume necessarily that would be what is in the best interest of the Nats. It is true. I mean, the Nats have not been super willing to trade away guys who aren't on expiring contracts. And, certainly the Juan Soto circumstance was almost like this very unique circumstance all into its own. Trey Turner, legitimately was a guy under contract for another season and then was going to go into free agency. The difference, though, obviously would be Lane is not Juan, Lane is not Trey, although this season Lane is actually better than Trey, but that's another conversation. I think it is tricky with Lane Thomas because we brought up the Ken Rosenthal report on the last show of how other rival executives supposedly are viewing Lane Thomas. And he is one of those guys where it's like glass half full, glass half empty. Like you can build the case for, he's a good player and he's a piece for the future. You also could build a case for he does a lot of the damage against lefties. And realistically, is he anything better than like a really good number 4, maybe number 3 outfielder? And I wonder deep down inside, what does Mike Rizzo truly think of Lane Thomas? We know what Mike says, but deep down inside, what does he truly think of Lane?
I think he might feel some of what you're describing there. I don't know that he sees what Lane is doing this year as this is the guy he's going to be for years to come. Now, that said, I think we've seen enough, and we mentioned this the other night. It's not just this year. He did it when he was first acquired. He did it at times last year. Because he is affordable and under control, and you just don't know if and when these kids are going to be ready and what they're going to turn into. I think the way that Mike looks at this is he's not trying to trade Lane Thomas. Now, if somebody called him up and said, hey, I really like this guy, and I'm going to offer you a significant package for him, then you consider it. And, think about the Soto and the Turner trades. Rizzo was willing to go there with that because he felt like that was his only way to get big time prospects in return. The feeling was that Max Scherzer alone was not going to get Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz. Once he added Trey Turner with his multiple years of control, that's how he pulled that off. Obviously, Juan Soto was going to bring back one of the biggest hauls in trade deadline history. Now, Lane Thomas isn't going to command that. But the control does at least offer the possibility of getting something more significant back than you're going to get for a Jeimer Candelario who's only under contract for 2 more months. So I think that's the line there, that if somehow the extra control of the guy could net you big-time players in return, then you look to do it. I think the question here is anybody out there willing to give up that much for a guy who there's some question about what kind of player is he really? You know what you're getting in Juan Soto, or at least Padres thought they knew what they were getting in Juan Soto. You don't really know exactly what you're getting in Lane Thomas if you acquire him and the next 2 years of him.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that he's not having a good July. I mean, I don't think that if you're an executive, you should let one bad month sweeten or sour you on someone. But, especially with a guy like Lane, who is maybe kind of a 50-50 guy, again, you could make the case one way, you could make the case the other way. in July, batting .240, .282 on base, .354 slugging. If you have this concern of, well, the success he's had this season isn't really who he is, and now he's having this bad month of July, that maybe sort of drags you into the territory of thinking, I don't know if we want to be giving away much of anything for this guy. It's fascinating, man. The trade deadline is always so interesting. For years, it was interesting in an entirely different way for the Nats because they were buyers. Now it's more about sellers. But, we're kind of getting used to this, right? 2021, the big fire sale. Last year, the big Juan Soto trade. And this year, I think extreme uncertainty in a way that we have never had before. In 21, we were pretty sure some trades were about to be made. Now, maybe it was surprising how all in the Nats went on the fire sale, but we knew that a fire sale to some extent was coming. Last year, by the time we got to August 2nd, we knew Juan Soto was being traded. It wasn't a surprise at that point. This year, I feel like there's as much mystery as ever in terms of really beyond Candelario. We don't know, and it could go in a variety of ways.
Yeah, it could go a variety of ways. I still deep down feel like it's not going to be that eventful. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Rizzo has done this one and played it close to his vest, and we're going to see Finnegan and Thomas and Trevor Williams or something like that get moved before Tuesday. I don't sense that that's where they're going, but maybe he goes in the opposite direction. Like I suggested the other day, I found my guy. I found my reliable major league reliever that I want them to buy at the trade deadline. He pitched in this game. His name's Adam Ottavino. The Mets are in full sell mode right now. Adam Ottavino has a 3.48 ERA, 44 appearances, good, solid, reliable reliever. He's making about $2.5 million the rest of the year. Free agent next year. Send a single A prospect to the Mets and bring in Adam Ottavino to solidify the bullpen for the rest of the year.
That's insane if they do that. I will lead the riot if, in fact, the Nats do that. I like Ottavino, but yeah, sign him this offseason. Please do not trade for him this year. Well, we shall see. Before we say goodbye, a salute to Montgomery County Little League for winning the Maryland State title. MoCo is headed to Connecticut, 2 wins away from Williamsport. So that would be quite cool. Montgomery County representing this area in the Little League World Series.
Especially so because if they do get to Williamsport, you know who's going to be in Williamsport? The Washington Nationals and yours truly. They are playing the Little League Classic against the Phillies on August 20th, I believe. And I actually am starting to make my travel plans for that to go up there and be a part of that Sunday morning at the Little League World Series. How remarkable would it be if a local team was playing there while the Nationals are in town? So let's go, kids. Come on, make this thing happen.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Would love to see that. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on Twitter at Nats_chat. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on our website too, natschatpodcast.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. A thank you to Tim Newmark for the Nats Chat podcast music. Check out his site, timnewmark.com. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Needs this out. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Here he comes. Strike 3 called. Cutter at the belt over the outside. And Erick Fedde pulls another Houdini act out of the hat.